Elon.
Joanne.
I appreciate it, Elon. We got to give Elon a round of applause. She's like the Vanna of webinars. We appreciate her so much. And I'm so excited to be with you again. This is round 3. And, you know, there's been a lot of information in the past 2. And this one is chocked full with information as well. You know, from my heart, it's just my intention to give you the best of what I got each time we're together, and then give you homework and other things that you can access resources as you continue to work out and be better at what you do, whatever your current context is. So we definitely have people from different parts of the country here today. I'm so excited about that. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to do a quick recap, which I think will be really helpful for those who have not been here before. So here's what the recap has been. As a reminder, everything related to this webinar series is housed on one page on my website. So when you go to thehumansphere.com, you'll see front and center a link to everything related to the series. So you'll have links to the previous webcast, links to any of the supplemental material that I've referenced as well, copies of the slides as well. So everything you need is there, and of course you can always contact me by email if you have some challenges downloading. All right, so let's do a fast recap, because that recapping is going to play into the importance of today. We looked at, in our first session, part 1, the difference between difficult and different. We also looked at, okay, sometimes, you know what, difficult may not be difficult. It may be just different, or a personal irritant, or it could be a personality conflict. We also suggested that in some cases, it's not only just difficult or different, it's actually unhealthy. And in effectively managing difficult employees, there does need to be key distinctions made between these 3, I call the 3 pots: difficult, different, and unhealthy. So those need to be looked at. We gave examples of what could be the difference between those in our first session. We talked about the fact that a popular source of difficult, or the root of some conflicts, does happen to be personality, and we referenced that and gave an example of that in part 1 as well. In part 2, we had a really great discussion about the key factors of human behavior, and what those factors are and how that can cause differences. It can also be a source of conflict. In particular, we examined the differences in perception. We said that 2 people can have the exact same experience and experience it and interpret it completely different ways. And we also talked about a source of difficult/different could be not only personal interpretation, but also too, we talked about the role of emotional intelligence. And we defined emotional intelligence very briefly. We talked about it being a lot of issues related to emotional maturity. And I also suggested that for the work that I've done, in many, many cases, the issue around an underperforming employee is not necessarily someone who is difficult or different, but someone who really just has a lack of emotional maturity. We also referenced very briefly whether someone is coachable or not, what that means, how that plays into difficult. So those are some of the things that we discussed in part 2. And for ready reference, one of the things I recommended in part 1, and an element that we'll use again today, is the study done by the Future Foundation on the cost of poor people management, where they quantified specifically dollars and days in what it's costing to manage people that are underperforming. One of the sources of that underperforming from that study was the lack of the best hire, best fit. And so again, for part 1, that study is actually, the link to that is referenced on that page on the website as well. Now, the other part of part 2 that I want to reference is we also talked about, we already talked about that, emotional intelligence. Then we talked about, in part 2, the 5 steps to assess a situation. Really, how to break it down and discern, now, is this person really just difficult, or personal irritant to me, or is there credible, measurable impact on the behavior that this behavior is causing among yourself, your team, and other stakeholders. And then we also referenced that there are really some simple ways to minimize simple ways to minimize the difficult behavior. And we gave a list of those things as well. Now, as we move forward to, we're going to springboard off of one of those simple ways to minimize, and that is through coaching. But before we go into that slide, what I'd like to do is remind us of what we thought of, what we referenced as the definition of difficult. So I'm going to turn that slide up again. This is taken directly from the dictionary, which I love because it really helps to clarify what we're doing here. The whole point of this webcast, the whole point of the training, the management training that I do around this topic is this. You'll see highlighted here, it says needing much effort or skill to accomplish. So here's what we mean by that. The whole point of this, and I think why sometimes things really are difficult, is because we really have a hard time, because we are not really skilled, we are not skilled at really managing difficult people. Let's face it, it's so much easier to manage people who are like us, or so much easier to manage people who are honestly more mature. In reality is, the more mature a team member is, the less they have to be managed. That's just that's reality. But we also know that, you know what, our work staff is not like that. Our teams, you're going to have less mature people. You're going to have people who really, just for no logical, legitimate reason, you get along with, or there's going to be something that irritates you. This is the reality of being a human being. And so this is, I believe, an essential skill or competency for any leader or manager, and that is the ability to navigate difficulty in rapport or relationship with another team member, or even with another colleague for that matter, right? So we need to be able to be skilled at it, and we need to be able to understand it. And part of part 2 was gaining an understanding and insight into human behavior. Now what we're going to look at in our final piece in part 3 is, what are some more practical things that we can employ that can help us minimize difficult situations, or to manage more effectively that quote-unquote difficult behavior or difficult employee. So we're looking at, yes, it's going to take effort because it's new. Yes, it's going to take developing a skill. And let's dial that back too, because the reality is, talking about a skill does not a skill make. So we're going to offer some opportunities and some information for us to then go back and turn our knowledge, what we gained from this series, turning knowledge into know-how. So if I were to contact you in 30 days and say, okay, now just from this webinar, some tips that we've already done, some action items we've already suggested, what have you done different? How have you handled differently something related to a difficult situation or a difficult employee? I want to really encourage you to be able to answer that, because I also know, as someone who's done seminars and workshops across North America for a number of years, is that people go to webinars, or they go to public seminars, or they get a training brought to their organization, and it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind in 90 days. 60 days, dare I say 30 days. And we know that if we don't use it, we will lose it. That's just the bottom line. So we're being really honest, really grounded in reality here. So I want to really encourage you to commit to putting some things into practice, reviewing the slides, having the opportunity to review the presentation, share it with other people, do lunch and learns, so that we can take it and turn it into a skill, knowledge, understanding, etc. Okay? All right, now, so let's go back and we're going to look at what then was the, we said simple ways to minimize a difficult behavior, and one of them was to be able to have a coaching conversation. That was in our list from part 2, remember? And we said you got to have a coaching conversation when, at the first hint, let's say it all together, the first hint of any counterproductive behavior, at first hint. And if we're not doing at the first hint, we have to ask ourselves, what's stopping me? Why am I not doing it? So let me pause for a second here and ask. For those of us who have been managers or leaders, or who have observed it in others, let's ask this. Why do people not initiate a coaching conversation at the first hint of a counterproductive behavior? Why? Let's see some reasons. Use your question section, and let's look at some reasons why. Reasons why. Okay. Elon and Amy's sharing a little bit. Okay, great. We're looking at a little bit, we're trying to monitor the feedback, you guys. So that's why I'm looking at the panel to kind of see how that's doing. So, Amy, appreciate your feedback on that. So the question is, why do we not at first hint respond to counterproductive behavior? Patrick says we're not knowledgeable. They are, Deneen says they are afraid the employee will get mad and quit. Yep, very legitimate. Yeah. Here's the key comment, Deneen, in your the key word was fear, afraid. Okay. Don't know. Patrick says don't know how to address it. Fear, Alan. Yep. Yep. Eric, don't really have any authority to make a change. Yeah, that's true. So, you know, there's no, you may have a positional power. This is really interesting that Eric said this. Think about this for a minute. Having positional power but not the authority to really make a difference. That's really an interesting distinction, and really can get, that's why a lot of middle managers really are frustrated, because they have the positional power, so to speak, or the title, but not necessarily the authority. Really, really great insight. It may not develop into a pattern. Yeah, that's true. So, okay, so Deanna says something very interesting. That's why sometimes people don't do it is, hey, it's a one-off, right? Okay, they're having a bad day. You know, okay, you know, I don't think it's ever going to really happen again, so I'm going to give it time and let it rest for a while. And so, Deanna, great point. Ryan says avoid confrontation. Yes, that's a true one, right? Okay, very good. Thanks, Amy. Don't like conflict. Thank you, Judith. That's very true. Oh, let me do a quick side note here. Remember from last week, I don't know if I mentioned it last week or not, but I'm going to mention it again now. One of the elements of emotional intelligence is the ability to manage conflict. So I got to put that out there, because I know that even, you know, that's a challenging thing for some of us, is managing and being willing to deal with conflict. Okay, Mark, waiting to see if it happens again. Yep, exactly. Avoiding conflict. L. Miller, Allen. They don't know how to effectively have a coaching conversation around counterproductive behavior. Right, exactly. They don't know the words to use. They may want to, but don't know what to say, how to start it. It feels uncomfortable. Patrick says, don't recognize the need to get it now before it grows. Yes. Okay, so Patrick makes a very, very good point. Here's my belief and observation. I don't think that sometimes we take certain behaviors in the workplace seriously enough. What do you think? Because then, you know, people like an employee goes postal, or there's violence in the workplace, and then we say, gosh, where did that come from? When there may have been hints of that all along, but we just don't take it seriously. Okay, so thank you so much for participating and adding to that question. It certainly makes a difference. So all the things you said, I believe, are absolutely true. That that we don't have a coaching conversation at the first hint. And so that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. Now, I decided that I was going to infuse a little bit of my program. I have something called the Management Intensive. It's a 12-week intense management development and training program that's virtual. It can be done from any place really in the world. But I have extra slides in this session specifically as a bonus for you. So we won't go through all of them, but it will also give you a flavor of what the Management Intensive is like, but will also give you some practical takeaways related to the concept of coaching. Okay, so when we look at it again, then we have to see this, and that is that, please remember this, in light of all the things that you shared, there is always a reason behind a behavior, and many times it's not the one we think. Okay, there is always a reason behind a behavior. Number two, behavior not addressed will continue. Okay, so let's say for a reason, a few of you said, okay, we're not going to, address it because it may not be a pattern, it may not happen again. Okay, okay, let's say that's true. But if it does happen again, if it does happen again, then we know what? We know that we've got to take seriously this right here. That means we've got to believe that the behavior is going to pop up again. And so we could say not necessarily at the first hint, but what we could say, if we're modifying this for you guys taking notes, at the first hint of a pattern, then it's time to address it. Okay? So we could modify it in that way, but that's really what we're talking about here. And that's really the foundation in understanding about human behavior that we really want to take advantage of too as well. Alrighty? Okay. So let's go ahead and then look at some issues related then to coaching. Now, I'm going to give you, this is part of the management intensive, this is what, if we were going through an entire coaching session and learning how to coach, these are some questions that we'll ask. We're just going to delve into a couple of these here today. First one is what is coaching? We're going to talk about that here in just a second. We're also going to look at the benefits of coaching and the impact of the absence of it. And then if we were to do the whole session, we talk about qualities of an effective coach. There's a bonus slide in here for that. And then what is effective coaching? So that's a part of the teaching people how to coach program from the management intensive. But for right now, let's do the first question. The first question then would be, what is coaching? So before I give my answer, please answer in your question box the question, what is coaching to you? How would you define it? Let's get some answers. What is coaching? Okay, we're looking at what is coaching, and you guys are sharing some answers. What is coaching? Okay, I'm not seeing stuff come up. Oh, being a mentor to bring out the best in each employee. Well said, Mark. Yep, love that answer. Being a mentor to bring out the best in an employee. Okay, Deanna says guidance, support for activities, and approaches to work. By the way, you guys, I hope you're taking notes because I'm trying to share back what people are sharing. You can also see the answers in the question box. The answers are great. Great answers, and I would recommend taking notes as well because these answers are really quite awesome. So Mark says being a mentor, Deanna says guidance, support for activities, approaches to work. Patrick says the training and development process. Yep, those three, all wonderful in a holistic definition. Excellent. Alan says a relationship, let me go back, a relationship and series of conversations. Oh boy, I love that. A relationship and series of conversations that maximizes the performance, well-being, and fulfillment of a coachee. That's great. So it's a relationship. It's also a series of conversations to maximize the performance and well-being and fulfillment. Okay, excellent, excellent. Judith says setting goals so the employee has to be accountable and then working with employee to make sure goals are being met. Perfect. Excellent. I would say probably the best definition is all of those put together. Great answers. Amy says, like all these answers for coaching. Excellent. Yeah, they're excellent answers. Okay. Alrighty. That's a comprehensive definition and everything that was just said. And I'm going to add to that with my answer, and that is, it is the ability. Let me move my panel here. The ability to constructively influence to a different outcome, both in a formal and an informal way. And I would say that the answer that's on the screen is really sort of the succinct of all the things that you shared. It's the ability to constructively influence. Notice it doesn't say, I mean, we can demand, we can, like coerce, we can manage by guilt if we want to do all those, but here's my personal philosophy related to management. Everybody's got a different one, and you need to have your own. I would suggest that one of the things that I love about being able to influence is that you're doing it from the inside out, not the outside in. Outside in means pressure on the outside that makes the person do something. I personally would rather influence someone so that they are motivated from the inside out. My belief is that influence will create more sustained owned motivation long term. That's just my philosophy. I've seen it happen in coaching. So it's like enabling, in a positive way, empowering someone to get from point A to point B. That's what I believe is really constructively influencing, and where the person feels like they can now own their own motivation to really get an outcome. So when you're looking at it, then you're looking at coaching as a process that enables learning and development to occur. Okay, with the aim of improving an individual's capability and performance while achieving company outcomes. So I'm going to just let that slide rest for a minute because I really want you guys to read that complete description and definition, and I'll read it one more time too. So coaching is a process that enables learning and development to occur with the aim of improving an individual's capability and performance while achieving company outcomes. Now the key word here related to what we're talking about today is the word process. It's not a one-off. It's not, by the way, let me do an appraisal or performance review once a year. It is an ongoing, Alan used the word conversation. It's a conversation, both giving formal and informal feedback. That's coaching. It's an ongoing relationship. Coaching is not only what we do, it's also who we are. So give me some examples of then informal ways of coaching. So give me some example of and short example of what. So what's an example of an informal coaching? What would that look like? What does informal coaching look like? What does informal coaching look like? Oops, sorry about that. Informal coaching. Oops. Okay, informal coaching, let's get some answers about that. Giving praise on a project well done. Okay, Wendy, that's great. Now, one thing that Wendy said that I want to add to, she said give praise on a project well done, is make sure that the praise is timely. Like feedback right away is really, really helpful. Because sending out praise like 6 months from now, it doesn't have the same impact as timely. So thanks, Wendy. Okay. Praise on project well done. Other examples of informal feedback. I think we've got a slight delay on like reading. Any other examples of informal coaching or informal feedback? Okay, Alan says real-time 5 or 10-minute conversation to address what you've just observed. That's excellent. Even if it's, you know, it's amazing what you can share in even 1 or 2 minutes for that matter. Asking insightful questions, helping them develop their awareness. What went well? You know, what could they do differently? So it's almost like we could say it's a mini debrief. You can do that in 1 or 2 minutes, and that could have huge impact over a period of time just with mini debriefs that don't take very long. Okay. Other examples of informal coaching. All right, so while we're asking the question then, also to give an example of what's formal coaching? What's formal coaching? And whatever you answer, I will be able to do it either way. Okay, Alan, employees crave feedback in informal coaching. They actually really do, because it takes a little time to do that. That's very, very true. All right, an example of formal coaching. So what's informal coaching? Guys, use your questions section to add, to communicate. Scheduling sessions, Patrick, yes. And by the way, that could be both formal and informal too, because I think the length of time might dictate whether it's formal or informal, but scheduling sessions is absolutely. Thanks, Patrick. Anything else, guys, you want to add to that? Scheduling sessions? I love to get your 2 cents in here while we can. Set a time each month, bi-weekly, whatever, agreed upon to review progress, clarity of goals, identify challenges and support needs. Absolutely, Alan. Absolutely. Okay. All right. So we've got a brief section of what is coaching. So now let's look at then what are the benefits. This is really big. The benefits of coaching. All right, so again, this is where you guys get to participate. Benefits of coaching. Very quickly, benefits of coaching. Put some things in that question. Okay, someone said, Patrick said it should be clear to the employee that this is a coaching event. That's true. You can say that, and you can even use the word feedback. By the way, total side note here, I wasn't even planning on sharing it, but this came to mind. One of the coaching techniques that I teach in the Management Intensive is called LBs. It's called LBs and NTs. In fact, I'll put it up here right now, LBs and NTs. Okay, and here's what that stands for. Like best, oh, NBs. Okay, literally, like I didn't even write that right. Duh. It's LBs. Okay, let me do it again. Okay, LBs and NTs. Okay, so that's what it stands for. Like best and next time. So here's what I like best. Next time, blah, 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 blah. And you can do the next time in two ways. You can state it as a statement, like next time, do blah, blah, blah. Or you can pose it as a question, which is another great coaching technique. Here's what I like best. Next time, how would we, or what would we, or why would we? So that's ways of evoking thinking, getting them to think for themselves, because we know that coaching is not so much about telling people how to think, telling them what to think, but encouraging them and nurturing and helping them learn how to think. That's really coaching as well, okay? So we're looking at what are the benefits of coaching, and that's my question, and you guys put in what is some benefits of coaching? What's some benefits of coaching? Okay, some stuff is coming up here. Okay, strengthens the relationship, provides support, promotes progress, stays on top of priorities, rewards progress. It removes roadblocks. That's a really good one. Inspires. Thank you, Alan. That is an incredible list. Patrick, employees get a fresh perspective on personal challenges. That's a really good one. Gains enhanced decision-making skills. Oh my gosh, that is so good. Have you ever been a part of a team where team members don't seem to be confident in even making their own decisions? Greater interpersonal skills. Excellent. Very good. Okay, Alan demonstrates the manager cares and is paying attention. This is big. Many employees feel like they're not getting, sometimes feel like they're not getting attention, they're not getting recognized. Coaching, the ongoing coaching conversation, it can infuse all those things into it as well. Okay, Shankar, building the next line of employees. Right, it could be a form of an element of succession planning and promotion preparation and leadership development. Absolutely. So, here's my list of the benefits of coaching. And I know that as I go through this list, you guys are going to even think of more, so please feel free to chime in your section there, in your question section as I go through this. Okay, it generates improvements, and this will be a little bit redundant based on what you guys have already shared. Generates improvement in individual performance goals with timely feedback. And the key is timely. The key is timely. Please know, and I'm just from my heart, please know, once a year, annual appraisals with no other feedback is very antiquated. So much is wasted in skill development. It's opportunity for skill development if you're only giving feedback once a year. And in fact, annual appraisal, I know some situations where an annual appraisal is the only time an employee gets feedback, and then the manager has to list all these things they did all year, which is a pain in the butt anyway, to be honest. And then, sometimes a team member gets totally sideswiped by things that they didn't even know the manager was even thinking. So this is one of the benefits of coaching is that it's timely in that respect. Also, it increases openness to learning and development. It helps an employee learn, be willing to take in feedback and to give feedback and to be really collaborative in what's going on with their performance on a regular basis. Also, it helps identify solutions to specific work-related issues. You may not have been in a situation like this or managed like this, but I've definitely been on teams where problems persist. You can see it from afar. You can see it from afar that you said that is going to turn into a big red herring. that's going to turn into a mess because it's not being dealt with, it's not being talked about, and for whatever the reason. So identifying things quickly, nipping them in the bud quickly also really helps, and coaching can contribute to that also. Greater ownership and responsibility. All right, if I hear the phrase, and you guys can chime in with a big amen on this, if I hear the phrase employee engagement one more time, I think I'm going to scream. Can I get any amens or yes or anything in the question section here? Because coaching, part of engagement is, part of coaching helps people stay engaged. And because there's a sense of rapport, it's a sense of responsibility as well. And it accelerates the career growth as well, okay? Okay, it's not, hey Eric, it's not, okay, it's okay. You know, we're really casual here because this is a total give and take. Eric mentioned housekeeping. It's probably, it may not be changed in selection to allow attendees to see the chat in their dashboard. And hey, that would be helpful if we could do that. So Elon, if you could do that, that would be great. Thanks, Eric. I appreciate the feedback on that. Okay, so we're looking at greater ownership and responsibility. Also, too, developing self-awareness. Please know this in behavior. We cannot change what we do not see. And being able to get feedback. And that's why, by the way, we do 360 feedback. Some of you, we're going to actually ask that question later, but that's why we do that, because we all have blind spots. There's certain things we can't see. Certain things that when people tell us we don't believe. I've definitely been guilty of that. So developing self-awareness is very true. I mean, think about it for a minute. If you are, as a manager, or let's say you're a team member, and you have a manager that really doesn't like your behavior or doesn't like your performance, and they hold it in all year and don't tell you, isn't that kind of, it just says, ugh, you know, it's just not a good rapport, and, you know, it just, and you know, it's honestly just not even healthy. So also, too, improves specific skills and behaviors right along the way, get clarity in roles and objectives, and corrects behavior, performance, and difficulties. Here you go. This is very important. It corrects behavior, performance, and difficulties as a process versus being punitive. And I want to park there for just a second. Look at the last one again. Corrects behavior and performance difficulties as a process. And so let's, in the bigger picture, as a coach, as a manager, my relationship to you is one of collaboration, it's one of partnership, it's one of support. I'm here to set you up for success. I'm here to actually help you be the most successful you can be. Versus antagonistic, versus you're the enemy, versus I'm like creeping around to catch you doing something bad, and by the way, I'm going to write you up if that doesn't happen. It just, you know, it's just not very constructive. And I know that there are companies that even do punitive things like writing people up and all those kinds of things. A lot of that really could be minimized with effective coaching. So that's the list. There also is another bigger list that goes with working with benefits to a company as well. So in this section then, these are slides that you can look at later on. These are a list of, we won't go into all of these, results of effective coaching for a company. So that's a bonus slide. So you can see very clearly that coaching is a critical element in managing difficult behavior and minimizing it in that way. And there's so many benefits to it, to you. It's less stressful. It's less stressful to the rest of the team. It's less stressful to the individual as well. So I'm going to go to the next slide here. All right, so let's look then at if then, and this is sort of a summary, but I do want to do it in reverse because I think it's very helpful. If a manager is not coaching, so we've set up, like, you know, all the benefits. That's our ideal nirvana, so to speak. If a manager is not coaching, imagine the complete absence of it. Maybe some of you don't have to imagine it, but imagine the complete absence of it. Then what is that about then? I mean, when there's not coaching at all, what are the results? Besides difficult people, difficult situations, that's a blanket phrase, right? But specifically, I want you to answer the question, the absence of coaching altogether, what could that create? What could that allow? Okay, the absence of coaching altogether, what could that create? What would that allow? Your chance to chime in and let's see, answer the question, the absence of coaching, what could that create? What could that allow? Miscommunication. Wendy, great answer. Wendy, miscommunication. Yeah. Dysfunction. Deneen, dysfunction. Team can't operate properly. Great point. Yep. So we have miscommunication. And by the way, when we miscommunicate, look at how long something can go on, or people will be working on projects or doing things that is due to miscommunication. Then you have to go back and correct what you were doing before. So dysfunction, miscommunication. Other things, the absence of coaching, what would develop? What would happen? Deneen, turnover. Yep. I'm not getting attention. I'm not getting feedback. And that could also be misunderstandings. Resentment, very true. Yeah, things fester, things are not addressed. Things get, you know how, well, I'm not going to say you know how it is. I'm just going to tell you how I do it. Sometimes I hold things in, and the more you hold it in, does it get smaller or does it get bigger? Well, at least in my case, I know it gets bigger and out of control. And, we probably experienced that on some level. Creates an atmosphere of confusion and duties are not defined. Absolutely, that could happen. Yep, absolutely, that could happen. Alan, the employee doesn't have a consistent place to be heard and to feel valued, helped in discovering their strengths. So, right, and so this is one of the things that I didn't put on the slide before, and I want to park here for a moment because Alan said this, and that is trust. Here's what I'd like for you to do. I'd like for you to, for those of you who do manage people, for those of you who have people that report to you, I would like for you to answer this question. Do the people on your team trust you and respect you? And then I'm going to reverse it. Do the people on your team feel trusted and respected? If you're taking notes, please write those down. And I would encourage you to honestly go through your team and answer that question. Because part of effective coaching, part of minimizing difficult behavior is being able to establish a rapport with an employee or staff member where there is genuine trust and respect. Here, total side note, but I really got to say this. Companies spend a lot of money on employee recognition programs and employee of the month and all these kinds of things. And yet, sometimes do not promote simple behaviors like trust and respect. And guess what? Those are free. It doesn't cost a dime to nurture trust and respect. And, it's almost counterproductive to put all these other things into place and then not have trust and respect. So this is a really critical piece for it as well. So, really when you come to think about it, and this goes way back to our session 1, we talked about, what are the reasons why difficult behavior or difficult employees exist. Many of you on the call who were here for the part 1 said the absence of effective leadership. You guys said that. And here we come again full circle. That in fact, the absence of it would end up really being a leadership gap. It really is about being able to say, you know what? See that thing right there? That thing right there? That's a gap. That can be filled with coaching. It's in this gap right here that sometimes things occur that we are hoping don't occur, and then we have to go back and we have to deal with it. Okay? So that's what it comes down to. So I want to pose a quick question, and this is just, please in your notes write this down. Do you have, and we could have made this a poll now that I think about it, but it's not a poll, but please just chime in on your window, your question window. Do you have a coaching culture in your organization? Do you have a coaching culture in your organization? If you would just say yes or no in your chat section, so we just got to get a feel for, Eric added, there's apathy that occurs when there's an absence of coaching too. That's actually very good, which is I think it's like the opposite of employee engagement, honestly. Okay. All right. And then they don't feel valued and a part of a team. That's Amy's as well. Okay. Okay. Deneen says no, but you're working on it. Yay, yay. And see, now this is great because hopefully you can take the slides back, do another Lunch and Learn, augment all the things that you're already doing related to coaching as well. Adu says no. Mark, not now, but plan to implement. That's great. I have to take off from, oh, okay. For those of you who do not have a coaching culture, I want to encourage you to really, obviously there's benefits to it. If you need help, please let me help you if at all possible. I have lots of good training programs, there's consulting or just advising, anything I can do to help support you setting up a management, a coaching culture and training on coaching, I'm happy to do that. Okay? Happy to do that. All right, so what we are looking at now is we've seen the benefits of coaching. And I have to watch my time here. We've seen the benefits of coaching. And now the other solution that I wanted to address very quickly is culture. Whenever I do a management training and we get to the culture part, here's what I say. Managers have in their toolkit one of the most powerful tools in their toolkit, and they don't even know what it is. And guess what? It's free. And I want you to say, I love free. One of the most powerful tools that a manager has in their toolkit, and it's free. And it has to do with culture. Does anybody know what it is? And it's 2 letters. It's 2 words. I'm sorry, it's 2 words. It has to do with culture, and it's a tool that a manager has in his toolkit. Anybody know what it is? Anybody want to guess before I say? 2 words. They both start with P. That's the clue. It has to do with culture and impact. Anybody want to take a guess? No one's guessing, or either we're delayed in the question section. Anybody want to guess what culture is? Starts with 2 words, P and P. Anybody? Okay, here's what it is. Peer pressure. Think of what's occurred throughout human history where peer pressure was used. What's happened throughout human history where peer pressure has been used? And by the way, oh, Mark said positive performance. Although I love that answer, Mark, that's good and close. That's good and close. Think of what's happened throughout human history where peer pressure has been used for good, but also where peer pressure was used not for good. Any answers? Things have happened throughout human history where peer pressure was used, it was constructive, it was positive, and it was really for the human good. Anybody? Anybody got one? Anybody got one for the negative? Okay, here's one. The Civil Rights Movement was where peer pressure was used for the good. And I can also think of buying an Apple iPhone. That's interesting. Yeah, because that's a cultural thing. Because you're right, Mark. Apple is really good about their culture as it relates to hip, cool, using the phone. Exactly. Oh, Eric says, don't throw out the trash. Yes, here's a good one. Don't throw trash out the car window. And okay, I'm going to date myself here. I can still vividly remember when they had the American Indian with crying when he saw trash. You guys remember that commercial, for those of you who are as old as I am? Yeah. Ecology is another one. Green Day, Earth Day is another one. Absolutely. A negative one, was the rise of Hitler. That was one where peer pressure was used in a not so good way. He just didn't come on the scene and take over. It was actually a subtle takeover. Okay. So what is culture? Culture is the attitudes and behavior and characteristics of a particular group. And I see the ability to manage a team, the ability to leverage culture as a part of a competency in effective management. So I want to, when you download these slides, because they're designed for you to take back and to do some work yourself, here's your homework. Answer the question, how would you describe the culture of your team? How would you describe the culture of your company? What characteristics do they have? What's missing that you would actually like to add? Okay? Ultimately, culture is the use and experience of peer pressure. And for those very successful CEOs, please know culture is very intentional. You know, Tony Hsieh from Zappos, the Amazon CEO, Jeff Bezos, those are all, they very much focus on culture because they know the impact that it has on their business and also on the retention of their employees as well. How is culture created? In 3 different ways. Number 1, it's inherited. And if we had more time, I'd actually ask you where you guys fit in that. It's inherited. You became a manager to an existing group. That means the culture was already created before you came. Next, it's by default, meaning organically it just developed, it just happened. And the third one is it's intentional, meaning the manager or leader of the company came in and said, okay, this is what I want the culture to be like, this is intentionally how I want it to be, and then things are done to permeate those attitudes and behaviors throughout the culture. So examine your own culture because, again, culture can impact performance. Culture can minimize bad behavior. Culture can minimize difficult employees. Which one applies to you, and then how can you use culture in that? Alrighty? Creating culture, to me, is team management, an effective, very important leadership and management competency. Managers need to know how to manage individual people. They also need to know how to effectively manage a collective team as well. Okay? Team management is really the leveraging, constructively leveraging peer pressure. And that's also a really great source and solution to minimize difficult employees and difficult behavior. Okay? Now, we've looked at 2 really, really good solutions, coaching and culture. And so the power of culture, this is a bonus slide. I'm just going to go through it real quick. Okay, bonus slide for you to do your action items related to assessing your culture. And then finally, we're going to look at this. We're going to look at, and I promised that we would do an exercise on costing. And we're getting towards the end of our time together. So what I want to do is set the framework for you, because whenever we try to create solutions for things, some of these are behavioral and attitudinal things that all of us can do that don't cost anything. In fact, this webinar is free, and hopefully you've gotten some great stuff out of this, and it was free to you. There are some things, though, that you will need to implement that will cost you some money. There's a range, inexpensive to expensive. And so as you're looking at dealing with coaching, training your managers, retention, maybe the need, we talked about coaching up or coaching out last week, maybe the need to let go of some people, it's going to cost to bring new people on, to train, etc. What's important to know is where does the bad behavior or unhealthy behavior or underperforming behavior, where is that? How much is that really costing us, and can we quantify it? Well, in part 1, it was quantified through the Future Foundation study. But I want us to learn how to create costing, or to look at costing very simply to our own organizations. Okay, so I'm going to give you a takeaway exercise, and I want to really invite you to do it, because in some cases it's going to be kind of mind-blowing. So here's the exercise, and this is part of your homework. Sorry, I got to give you homework. And we're going to use from the Future Foundation the study and the premise that the average manager that they deal with an underperforming employee 34 days per year. So we're going to use that as the premise, just for this costing exercise, okay? And so we're going to see then that this is a framework. So when you download the slide, you'll see, so you're going to take that premise, or you can even do your own. You may take this and say, hey, I just want to calculate my own cost right now. You want to identify, these are the very simple steps to a very simple costing exercise. You want to identify the compensation of the manager in question, and break it down into what would be hourly. So identify the compensation of the manager, of the difficult employee, and potentially, depending on the situation, the team members that are impacted by the behavior of the employee. Now, just a quick reminder, this circles back to the assessment of the 5 steps we talked about in part 2, and that is it just a personal irritant, or is there a substantial measurable cost to this behavior, or to how this employee is, this behavior, how this employee is, okay? So that's step 1. Step 2 would be then break them down into appropriate hourly rates where needed. Okay, very simple. Everybody can do that. Alrighty. Next is, and that's of the manager, the employee, and of the team members. All right. Step 3, identify the time wasted in minutes to hours. You may want to do just minutes. You may want to do just hours. It all depends on how you want to calculate it out. So identify time wasted for each of the parties or all parties involved. Then step 4 is to multiply the hourly rate times time wasted. Okay, multiply the hourly rate times time wasted, depending on how you want to do that. And then add all the numbers up for the financial impact. And again, we're just using the premise of the 34 days for the sake of this exercise. I highly encourage you to do this exercise, either with your own hours or minutes or with someone else's, to give you a sense of cost, because this is critical to this against the decisions you'll need to make to address this in a practical way if you need to spend any money on it. Okay. All right. Other cost considerations, and by the way, that was just phase 1 of costing. Other elements of costing is the impact to other stakeholders. Also, too, retention. Have people left because of this person? Okay, this is great for HR people, by the way, when a manager is not being effective, and you've had several talented people leave. Also, too, turnover. Then, when someone turns over, there's unemployment, there's severance. These are in addition to what we did in the first section. Also, recruiting and hiring, what would be the cost to replace a person or several people on the team. And then training up, how much is going to cost? Loss of productivity to get someone to the level they need to be to really be considered productive. Okay? There is a cost, as you can see, to not dealing with difficult behavior. There's a cost emotionally, psychologically, even spiritually, and financially. Alrighty, so as we close out our time together, I want to do a quick poll, and you know what, here's some things that I want us to be very honest with. I'm going to lay out very quickly some leadership insights that might impact your ability to influence. It's like a bonus slide. But let's do this poll real quick, because really we talked about in our part 2, and I want to bring it back full circle as we close, really dealing with a difficult employee begins with us as leaders and managers. Part of that is understanding what our impact is, and one practical way that's done is through a 360 feedback. So we're going to do a quick poll here. Elon, if you'd like to kick up the poll, have you ever done or do you do 360s? That's the poll. Have you ever done or do you do a 360 feedback? Hopefully everybody knows what that is. That's when you survey all your stakeholders and your direct reports, and they give you feedback on how you're doing as a manager or leader. And we're seeing the poll right now. So far we're at 86 people say no, 14% say yes. Okay, we're at 88 no, 11 yes, 43 people voted. We're at about 80-20. That's what that looks like, 73-27. Okay, it's about at 80-20 if you've done a 360 feedback or if you do 360 feedbacks. Okay, if you've not, 75-25. So if you've never done one before, it's something that you'll want to consider. Not only in terms of you getting 360, but also team members giving 360 to each other where appropriate also. Please know that your ability to put any of this into practice has to do with the elements that are on the leadership impact. So I would just encourage you to grade yourself here. Here's our don'ts, and I usually don't like to do don'ts because they're negative, but I think it's really important to see it this way. If you don't model what you expect, if you demonstrate bias, if you don't model, if you demonstrate bias, if you are inconsistent with people that you lead, and they see that, your team members see it, not showing enough attention. I know that not showing enough attention. That might sound quirky, but there are some team members who really need that. Remember, we're measuring their own emotional intelligence. Alrighty. If you are not clear, if you are not firm, if you do not execute consequences, remember, behavior not addressed will continue. If you do not have a recent reality check, and that's what I call 360s. 360s are a reality check. How am I doing? Because they get the reality check through the feedback. we also need a reality check as a leader. Part of that coaching dynamic, collaborative, partnership, you get feedback too. And that's, that's the way, that's the building of respect and rapport. And then one final thing I want to bring to your attention, and that's unintended messages. So for those of you taking notes, please write this question down. Are there unintended messages that I'm delivering to my staff? Are there unintended messages that I'm delivering to my staff that are then undermining the very things that I want from them? Are there unintended messages that I'm delivering that's undermining the very thing that I want back from my staff? Okay, super important question to ask. Alrighty? Alrighty. So we have two overriding solutions as we close. The first thing is develop coaches and a coaching culture. And we've suggested that. We've already talked about that. And I'm happy to help you with that. That's part of what I do in my talent management practice, is help you set those things up, do a coaching program, either online or in person. And it's not just a one-off fix, you guys. It is definitely an ongoing thing. There's a difference between people learning and people developing. And one is, it could be a one-off learning, but developing, that takes time. It's skill development, it's developing habits. Okay, and then have an employee management infrastructure. And this is really a really huge piece. We talked about what is an effective performance management. I call it employee management infrastructure to support the activity and the outcomes. All the things that we talked about today should be part of an employee management, I call it infrastructure. That infrastructure really is the philosophy, the processes and procedures, methods and tools to execute and document your outcomes. Very key here, and that is to document your outcomes. Execute and document. Also, too, for legal reasons, that's super important as well. Your infrastructure actually ties everything that we talked about together, and that's super important. One of the reasons why I'm even doing this is because I decided a while back that as I was working with my clients, that I really wanted to, give my clients something more. And I wanted to give them some performance management tools. You'll notice this is a recent, I don't know if you guys have heard of Josh Bearson, but he's a really great researcher in our space related to anything related to employee engagement and that kind of thing. He recently has a great study that's out just recently, and in that study, it's actually from Forbes magazine, I just retrieved this a couple days ago. He talked about statistics on where companies who were surveyed see themselves related to performance management. Okay, and they talked about branding, skills, but here's what I thought was interesting, the highlighted section. And when we asked companies to evaluate their management practices, they were particularly critical of the way they manage performance, leading us to the conclusion that performance management is broken. I find that absolutely fascinating. Only 6% believe their current process for managing performance is worth the time. 58 called their process weak, with North American companies 20% worse than the rest of the world from this study. Okay, and I can give you the link to where that is, but let me tell you this, that's why, one of the reasons why I decided to partner with Synergity, they are my performance management software partner, because they provide very affordably that infrastructure that I knew my clients needed that at the time I could not offer them. It's great to teach coaching. It's great to have training. It's great, but then what do you do with it? How do you document it? How do you make it work? How do you tie it to business outcomes? That's what performance management software does. It teaches people, and it's embedded in the everyday work experience, so all those things can be tracked, and by the way, so that appraisals can be effortless. This is the key. So it's not a pain in the butt, it's not a waste of time, but all of it's very, very constructive. And that's the reason why I even agreed to do this with Synergity, and that is to provide for free this webinar series. So we're back full circle, just where we started in part one. We're looking at what is effective performance management. And it's related to coaching, time and business objectives, clear tracking and documenting, and also to provides a satisfying process to coach out. Satisfying process means legal and documented, and also provides matrix and data for broad overview for really good decision making. So really, as we come to a close of our series, I really want to encourage you. We decided, I asked the guys at Synergy, well, guys and gals, if we could do, from those who've been on the webinar, an actual group demo together, so that you would be able to, without any pressure or anything, see, okay, I've never seen performance management software. I don't even know what the heck it is. I've never seen it. I don't even know what to look for if I went out to get some. I want us to be able to see what it can offer us in a safe environment. And so I asked Shankar, and he said yes, that was fine. So we've set up a group demo next Friday the 24th, where you can actually sign up and actually see what the software is like, what it does, ask questions, so that even if you never, let's say buy it from Synergy or buy it from me or whatever, you at least know what to look for in a vendor. And related to, and what I really want to do is tie together, how does this software tie together all the things that we've talked about for the past three sessions? How do we take that practice, and now turn it into know-how, and what role does the software play in supporting the very things that we've been that we want to accomplish from this series? Okay, so there's a sign-up link. It's on the website. It's also in the slides when you download them. If you do a review of this again, it's there as well. But I really invite you to sign up for the demo so that we can all look at it together and see where the value is and match the principles and the theory to the practice and philosophy of actual performance management, and ultimately to minimize difficult employees, to get us out of pain and to get our colleagues out of pain and get our team members out of pain, so that we can have the best talent and get the best business outcomes and be the most profitable we can within our profit and non-profit environments. Okay? All right. That's it. I can't believe it's over. So any questions or any comments, any feedback? Let me do a quick, for those of you who are still on the call, I call it rapid fire review. Off the top of your head, what's something that you learned today or learned from any of the series, like BAM, subconscious, let it go, type in, okay, this is what I remember, this is what I learned, this is what are my takeaways, let's fire off, I call it rapid fire review, and I'll read them as we close. Remember, I'm available for any questions or comments afterwards, but let's do a rapid fire review real quick. What did you learn today? What did you learn today, or what did you learn over the series? Can you Google that? And there was where is this? Amy, a couple of versions, still cry when I see it. Okay. Oh. Okay, what did you learn from today? Anybody learn from the day, learn from the whole series, a rapid fire review, just a strong takeaway, something that you can remember. Okay, I think we have a little bit of a delay here as